you doing, everybody? And welcome to Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. It is Friday. It is a great Friday in the great state of Wisconsin. We're getting ready. We got one day before the Pack takes on the 49ers there in San Fran. We're going to be talking about that game today. We have a lot to talk about. Big weekend in Wisconsin sports. So I got Austin and Rogan with me today. Rogan, how we doing on this Friday?
We're doing good, Trage. It's almost the weekend. The weekend is almost here. The weekend brings the Packers, and the Packers bring a butt whooping. Let's go.
A butt whooping indeed. That's what we're hoping for.
I used to get those sometimes. Butt whooping.
Austin, how we doing on this Friday?
I'm doing good. Hopefully we get a different type of butt whooping for the Packers versus 49ers. That's a good one. I'm wearing my lucky Green Bay Packer hat right now because I feel the magic is in the air, Trage. The magic is in the air.
Magic is in the air.
Because you know what? It's Friday. And every Friday I say TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. Amen. So
thank God it is Friday indeed. And Austin, I gotta say, I've known you for a while. You did not get enough butt whoopings when you were little. So with that, we got a lot to talk about here. But first, we're gonna jump into the Bucs. Bucs in action on Saturday, coming off of. Well, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, and embarrassing. I mean, no Giannis playing for the Bucs against the Cavs, but all the way around, just a terrible performance by this Bucs team against the Cavs. But they got the Pistons now coming up on Saturday, and the Pistons, for lack of better terms, are not good. They're terrible. So this needs to be a bounce-back game for the Bucs here in this one. So, Austin, who are we looking for some key players for the Pistons to watch out for if you are the Milwaukee Bucks in this game?
The Pistons, I mean, they lost a lot of games, but they've added 2 more wins since the last time we played them. So now they're a stellar 4-37, but they last won against the Wizards 129-117, and then they lost to the Timberwolves, and now they're playing the Bucks here on Saturday at 2:00. But just looking at some stats, Cade Cunningham is leading them in 3 categories here with points per game at 22.8, assists with 7.2, and steals with 1 there. And then Jalen Duren is leading them in rebounds with 11.5 and blocks with 1. He also adds 14.3 points per game. Bojan Bogdanovic adds 19.8 points per game. And then Jaden Ivey, 14.2 points per game. And then Alec Burks adds 12.1. So, I mean, when you look at and see that a lot of the guys average double figures here for this Pistons team, and I'm pretty sure before they were pretty close to being the Celtics team there, but they kind of choked at the end and gave up a pretty big lead that they had. So they're a solid team, and with how the Bucks looked yesterday against Cleveland, I wouldn't be surprised if we would be the team to drop against the Pistons. Granted, we didn't have Giannis, so I think that really hurt us, which I feel like it shouldn't have, but it did. And I'm pretty sure he'll be back for this game. I don't see why he wouldn't be. Just looking at Detroit injuries, that was a while ago. As of January 9th, it said Cade Cunningham would be out, but that's a 7 to 10 days. So it looks like he's back. So Detroit doesn't really have any injuries. So they got their full team. They just suck. So I think the Bucks should be fine here. We have a 71% chance to win, which I feel like is a little low, but considering how the Bucks have been playing, I'm not surprised that they kind of gave it a 71% chance.
But hey, you're talking about a Detroit Pistons team that's just as good at home as they are on the road. 2 wins at home, 2 wins on the road. I mean, they're even. You get them on the road, you get them at home. They're going to put up a fight. You know, all joking aside, with this Pistons team, they can score the basketball. Looking at, I mean, their last game out against the Timberwolves, 124-117, they lost that game. That's pretty good Minnesota Timberwolves team. And then the game before that, they actually beat the Wizards. Game before that, they lost by 2 to the Houston Rockets. And then games before that, they lost to San Antonio and the Kings. The Kings, they lost by 21. But this team can put up points. And they play a pretty good defensive game. Looking at some of these scores, they're holding teams. They held the Timberwolves to 124. So they're definitely a team you cannot take lightly going into this matchup. You're going to need, I mean, for the Bucks to play well, as we saw against the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're going to need Giannis out there to play well in this one to really well round out this team. So, Rogan, what are some of the things you're watching for in this one? I mean, this is a game the Bucks should have in hand pretty early, but there's got to be some things that we want to see out of the Bucks in this one that are going to help them moving forward.
Yeah, Trey, this game should not even be close. This should be a blowout for the Bucks, but then again, it's the Bucks, and they have been awful this year so far on defense. I just got done watching my sister play basketball, and their defense is considerably better than what the Bucks play. So I would not be surprised if the Pistons keep this close, put up 120, 130 points on this Bucks defense, because about any team in the entire world can at this point. But yeah, this should be a blowout for the Bucks, but it won't be. Let's be honest. This team has been playing really poorly lately, but this would be ugly if the Bucks lost this one.
So what I gathered out of what you had to say there was that we got to see the defense play better. And that's about it. That's about all I gathered out of what you said there, was that the defense needs to play better, and we need to see it in this matchup for anything good to be thought of this game. They got to make this game look like it should, basically, in hindsight. This is a 4-37 team going into playing one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference.
I don't care if we score 150 points or 100 points. As long as the Pistons do not score over 110, I will be happy. If win or lose. But we cannot give over 110 points to the Detroit Pistons.
Well, we scored 95 last game.
But how many did we give up? 135 points. That's insanity. You're not going to win a single basketball game giving up that many points.
And, looking at the two matchups for the Bucks this year against the Pistons, 114, 118 the Pistons have scored. So, they're going to be sitting in that 110 to 120 range right there. But I would say the Bucks defense from early on this year to now, I can't believe I'm going to say it, but I think it's gotten worse. I think, honestly, it's gotten a lot worse. I think the laziness on the defensive end and rebounding. I think reboundings went downhill it's one of the simplest things you can do is find a guy, box him out, and rebound. I thought that was a simple thing. But you watch this Bucks team, and it's like everybody bails. Everybody's trying to get out in transition before the ball's even gathered. And, you can't win basketball games like that, and that's a big part of the Bucks' problem right now, is the fundamental part of it. We're not NBA basketball players. We're not NBA basketball players by any means, but we can tell you that how basketball games are won and lost. And if those guys can't see it, something's got to happen within the Bucks organization then at the coaching level to be able to get to these guys and explain it to them. Get in their heads that this is what needs to happen. Austin, what do you got?
I was just going to add that, like you were kind of saying, people are kind of getting out in transition quickly. That's just because the NBA is just so fast-paced at this point. Everything's about points these days. So the guards are kind of just getting out there right away, and they're trusting that the centers or the forwards will kind of get the rebounds, and then when there's not enough guys down there, then they're not getting it. I also wanted to add that Giannis is day-to-day, he has a right shoulder contusion there. So I don't know if we'll see him against the Pistons, considering how bad the Pistons are. That's why he didn't play against the Cavs, and I'm going to assume because the Pistons are so bad, they might sit him out another game here. But if that's the case, I hope the other guys can kind of pick up the lack of play there, because they're going to obviously have to score over 95 points, and Chris Middleton and Beasley are going to have to combine for more than 4 that they gave us against the Cavs there. So hopefully we see Giannis play, but with him being day-to-day and him being out against the Cavs, and now we're playing, like I said, a not-so-good Pistons team, I don't know if he's going to be in there come Saturday.
I keen on one of the things you said there, and that is that the NBA is turning into more of a transition scoring league, and that's the truth. That's what it is. But you look at the Bucks' losses, and you say, okay, the Indiana Pacers, right? They're a younger team. They're a scrappier team. They're going to get in there and try to get those rebounds. You look at a team like the Utah Jazz. They don't have a lot of star power, a lot of veteran power on that team. They're a younger team. Even the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're a younger team. Outside of Donovan Mitchell, they're a younger team. And you look at the Bucks' losses, You look at their last 5 games, their wins are against the Celtics, the Golden State Warriors, and the Kings. You look at their 2 losses there, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Utah Jazz, both younger teams compared to these other teams. I mean, the Kings aren't relatively old, but they're accustomed to how this league is operating. So to me, it's almost like the most dangerous team to the Bucks right now, outside of like a Celtics team who is all around, I believe, right now playing better on both ends of the floor. The most dangerous team to the Bucks is an athletic young team who doesn't they understand the rules of the league, but they don't play by them yet. They're playing their own kind of game yet. They're not accustomed to playing the NBA as we're seeing it now. Whereas, guys have to transition into that. They get into that NBA flow. These are like your college guys who are still playing the college game, the gritty game. We have to get in there where all 5 of us are going to rebound the basketball. And that has a lot to do with coaching too. A lot of these coaches like on the Indiana Pacers, that's how they're coached. I mean, they're coached to be stingy on the defensive end. We're going to get in there. We're going to board. We're going to get the basketball, and then we're going to worry about transition game. And you look how well the Pacers work in transition. I mean, they are one of the best teams in the East there, transition offense. And that's because they have guys down there getting the boards, and then they leak out. Then they get out and push the basketball. So that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. I don't know, Rogan, from what, that's just how I'm seeing it right now, is the teams that are beating the Bucks are the young guys. The guys who aren't accustomed to how, like Austin said, this league has turned into is more of a run league. These guys that are beating them are the young guys, the young guns, who are kind of just flying by the seat of their pants, just getting into the league now.
Yeah, these young teams are athletic, and you look at this Bucks team, and like we were saying yesterday, old and not very athletic anymore. Like these guys between Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton's not a great athlete. Bobby Portis isn't a great athlete. Connaughton's a decent athlete, but not good enough for some of these wings you got now. And Damian Lillard, he's a good athlete, but not as athletic as you see some of these guards and wings nowadays. Malik Beasley, not that great of an athlete. But you see like a guy like Giannis, by far our best athlete, but you look at some of these younger teams and our guys on the perimeter are just getting beat off the dribble because the sheer athleticism for these young teams is far more than what we have. So like we were saying yesterday, I think they need to start going look for maybe a youth movement at the trade deadline here, trade for some younger guys, get some youth on this team because like you said, some of these teams are just running right past the Bucks nowadays.
Yeah, and Austin, I'm just going to shoot it out there, but looking at this Bucks team, I mean, Damian Lillard has athleticism. It's not like we have a technical difficulty. We had a chair get broken on the opposite side there. Austin's telling us how he could steal bases yesterday.
It's broken.
Don't let him get on base. He can steal them, but I just watched him break through a chair.
It ain't broken. I can fix it.
That was solid. Oh, cool.
So we're down a man. The chair is down, but Austin is still upright. So we're good. We're good on that. So with that, just a little technical difficulty. But with that, I mean, I'm just looking at this Bucks team, and like Rogan said, they don't play athletic, but they pick and choose times to play athletic in the game. It tends to show on the offensive end. Like Damian Lillard can get by a guy on the offensive end if he wants to, but on the defensive end, he looks like he has no athleticism down there at all. I mean, is it athleticism that we're getting beat by right now, or is it laziness? Is it just veteran players on this Bucks team, especially in the backcourt, who are just lazy and don't really care what happens on the defensive end? Like Damian Lillard, we're out there to score 40 points. I don't care if I get blown past 15 times.
I think it's a combination. You look at, like we talked about yesterday, Brook Lopez. He's old, and he's not the most athletic. And then you also look at Chris Middleton and Damian Lillard, who are primarily offensive players. I don't really see them as defensive players. And so those guys, they'll play defense because they have to be on the court. But like you said, sometimes they get a little lazy, and I don't think that's what they really care about. I don't think they care about defense. I think that they plan on trying to outscore the other team. And that's another thing that the NBA has kind of turned into, is trying to outscore team instead of just trying to play defense. I think overall, Giannis is the only one that really does both. He'll fly down the court and dunk it, and then the next time he'll get back and block a shot. So Giannis is the only one that's really keeping up with the pace here, while other guys on the team are either being lazy or just getting out physical by younger guys or a lot more athletic guys.
Yeah, I agree. I can see that. And, the guy that stands out that we've talked about, Brook Lopez, he's more of a traditional big man where he's not going to be the fly around kind of guy. He's going to box out. He's going to get you a rebound, but he's not going to fly down the court. So that kind of takes him out of this new style NBA like we were talking there. But with that, I want to jump out of the Bucks here. Bucks Pistons, 2:00 there on Saturday. They're going to be playing before that Packer game. So that should be a good matchup to watch before we check out the Packers. But with that, I want to move on here, talk about your hometown Century 21 Gold Key Realty. Call Peggy Sue or Anna to find your dream home, or if you're looking to sell, find them on Facebook at Home Team Century 21 Gold Key Realty, or stop in and see them at their location in Marshfield. But with that, we got to jump into the college basketball slate for the weekend here in Wisconsin. First up, we have tonight, we're going to have Wisconsin looking to bounce back after that upset loss to Penn State. They're going to be taking on Indiana. That will be a big matchup from the Kohl Center. Badgers coming back home for this one. So Austin, for this game, going up against they're not a bad Indiana Hoosiers team by any means. They're a pretty good, well put together team. So what are we looking at right now from Indiana? Some of the players that stand out to watch out for.
Yeah, first off, like you said, not a bad Indiana team. They're 12-6 overall. Badgers are projected to win by 91.3, though. And I think that's a little surprising considering such a bad game we saw against Penn State here. That could be because we are at the Kohl Center. But just looking at Indiana, they played some good competition so far. I mean, they played UConn, lost by 20, though. And then they played Kansas, lost by only 4 to Kansas there. That was a little bit earlier in the year. And then they just recently lost by 20 against Purdue. Looking at statistics for this Indiana team, they're led by Malik Reneau. That's what we're going to go with. Malik Reneau, he averages 15.8 points per game there for Indiana Hoosiers. And then Khalil Ware is right behind him with 14.2, also adds 9.4 rebounds and 1.6 blocks. He's listed as a center here. So usually we've been seeing a lot of teams that their big man is mainly listed as a forward. But this guy's listed as a center, and he's 7 feet tall. We saw how I think Steven Crowell kind of had a bounce back game from his knee injury and whatever, but this guy definitely, Khalil Ware, might give Steven Crowell a little bit more trouble than we've seen from other guys in the league here. And then Trey Galloway is averaging 10.7 for them, along with 4 assists per game. So when you look at their team leaders in all the categories, it's pretty spread out. They don't really have one guy that leads them in every single category, kind of like a Giannis, if you want to say. They are pretty spread out as a team. They average 73.9 points per game there, and then 35 rebounds, along with 15.5 assists. So not a terrible team overall, and I don't think they're really getting the credit that they deserve by ESPN. Obviously, predictions are probably based off a bunch of numbers that they plug into a computer and it spits out this number. But I don't think they're getting the credit that they deserve by the Badgers having a 91% chance win over these guys. And I say that with the defense that we saw against Penn State and how they just got out-physicaled against, and how Wisconsin just got out-physicaled against Penn State. We could see the same thing against this Indiana Hoosiers team real quickly. Luckily, it is at the Kohl Center, but I think it'll be a good game, and I don't think it'll be as much of a blowout as some people may think, or like what the prediction thinks. I don't think it's going to be an easy win.
We're hoping for a blowout. I'd love to see a blowout, see the Badgers defense bounce back in this one. I'm going to look at the all-time series for these two teams here. Last season, we all remember going to Assembly Hall, getting the doors knocked off of us 63-45. That was a terrible game there in Bloomington for that one. Indiana actually leads the all-time series at Assembly Hall 56-30. So Wisconsin's only went to Assembly Hall and won 30 times. They lead the all-time series 98-79. Indiana does. So they've had pretty good success against this Badger team over the years. But if you look at the last 12 matchups these guys have faced off in, the Badgers have actually won 10 of the last 12. So they've made up a lot of ground in the last couple years here against this Indiana team. But like you were talking about, Ware is going to be a key factor in this one. This isn't the first time the Badgers have seen Ware. He was actually at Oregon last season. The Badgers faced him in the NIT tournament. They saw him in the NIT when they traveled to Eugene and faced Oregon. He played limited minutes. He had 15 minutes. He shot 1 for 6 from the field, only had 2 points in that ball game. But Ware was a key factor for that Oregon team. He was young. This is his second college season now. He's a sophomore now, and he's lanky. That's what I remember from watching him there at Oregon. Long, lanky guy. He's gonna give the Badgers trouble. Like you said, he's almost averaging 10 rebounds per game, and he's currently sitting at, a boatload of points, 14.2 points per game. That's ridiculous numbers there out of Ware. He's all over the place. 30 minutes per contest. So looking at that, he's out there for a majority of the game. Like Steven Crowl for the Badgers on a good day, Ware plays most of the game for this Indiana team. So that's going to be a big thing to watch out for. Looking at Indiana as a whole, they're a tall team. And when I say that, they're going to be a matchup nightmare for Wisconsin in this one. I look at them and, you have the 7-footer in Ware out there. He's the tallest guy. But you look at the rest of them, and they actually have the 4th tallest team in the country, according to Ken Pom. So whatever Ken Pom tells us is right. So Ken Pom tells us that they have the 4th tallest lineup in America. That's what I'm going to go with there. And they got an average height of 6.5 feet, or 6.58 feet tall. I don't know why they couldn't just give me real numbers there, but they gave me 6.58. So in this one, they have just 5 players shorter than 6'5", 2 players shorter than 6'3", and they have 6 players 6'8" or taller. Holy crap. They got some tall guys. They got some big boys on this Indiana team. That is, looking at, I've never seen a lineup quite like this. You look at their frequent lineup that they use out there. They have a guy who's 6'3", Xavier Johnson, but then Trey Galloway, 6'5", 6'8", Mackenzie Makbuku, and then 6'9", Malik Renew, and then Ware's technically listed as 7 foot, but they qualify him he's varies on the day kind of height wise. You'll see that around depending on who you ask. He's either 6'10", 6'9", 6'10", or 7 foot. He's a 7-footer. When you add in that wingspan that he's got, he's a 7-footer, no doubt in my mind. So you look at this lineup for him, you're going to have problems. You're going to put Chucky on Xavier Johnson. You're going to give Klesmit the matchup with Trey Galloway in this one, I would assume. And then after that, Blackwell could come in, but Essegian's going to have trouble. You can't take AJ Storr is going to give you your height matchup there because you're going to have to stick Steven Crowl on Ware. You're going to have Tyler Wall on Malik Renew. And then Mackenzie Makbuku is going to have to be manned up by AJ Storr in this one. So the matchups become a nightmare for Greg Gard, especially if reffing becomes predominant in this game. We lose a guy or two. We're going to have to dig deep on the bench. Maybe Carter Gilmore is going to have to play big minutes. Nolan Winter is going to have to be massive in times when Steven Crowl needs to take a break, because Nolan Winter is going to have to be able to get rebounds against a very tall Indiana team in this one. And that's what worries me, is the size advantage that I believe Indiana has. They could cause matchup nightmares for Wisconsin, depending on the situations in this game. You bring in Kamari McGee in this ball game. He's a little on the shorter side. Xavier Johnson at 6'3" isn't a small guy. He plays bigger than what he is. And that could cause, across the board, matchup nightmares for Wisconsin. Also looking, I just talked about Malik Renew a little bit. He's averaging 6.1 points per game at 3.7. He was averaging 6.1 points per game last season with Indiana. and now he's averaging 15.8. So you look at the growth that he's had over the past 2 seasons here. You're going to have to be able to shut him down. You now have to deal with Ware, and Trey Galloway has been it seems like he's been at Indiana forever now. I mean, it was great that we finally got rid of Trace Jackson Davis because I couldn't handle him beating on the Badgers for another year. But Trey Galloway seems like he's been here forever, and now we get to face him one more time. So you're going to have to, this Indiana team, like you said, 12-6, very good 12-6 team, a very dangerous 12-6 team. I feel like they're still trying to put everything together. You look at where he came over from Oregon, so you have that transfer. You're trying to build this, Woodson is, into a well-knit team. They don't have the benefit like the Badgers did where everybody was already in-house. So, Rogan, looking at this game right here, what are you seeing as some of your keys for the Badgers there going up against a pretty tall and lanky Indiana team? How do you think they can get it done on both ends of the floor?
Yeah, with that height, you're going to have to make some outside shots because it's really going to – I think early Indiana's probably going to pack the paint on this Badger team. We don't have a lot of great shooters, but once you start hitting some of those threes, you really start opening up the driving lanes, opening up the post touches for a guy like Wall who, he came off a pretty poor performance last game against Penn State, so I think he's going to have a bounce-back game. He always tends to play good at the Kohl Center, and I think this whole Badger team in general is going to have a pretty nice bounce-back game. But you're back home, which is big. This team has been hot all year long. It was one hiccup. I don't think they're going to make anything out of it. I think they're going to come out and play well. But that height and length is definitely going to give the Badgers some trouble, and they're going to really have to rebound. Rebounding is going to be important in this game. You can't give up second shots to a team like this, especially when they're coming to your place. At your house, you got to shut down the paint. You got to get those boards. You got to keep them away from second chance points and those transition baskets. So, but you're going to have to make some outside shots to open up this paint for the Badgers. So guys like Storr, he's going to have a good night shooting. Hepburn, I want to see Hepburn get it going a little bit. I know he's been really passive, which has been really good for the Badgers this year, but I think he's going to be important in this game scoring. I think we need a little more scoring out of Hepburn. And, and a guy like Blackwell, and if Essegian gets minutes, he's going to have to play good because he's going to have to play tough on defense because you've seen with guard, he isn't afraid to send Essegian right back to the bench and not bring him back in. So if he wants minutes, he's going to really have to step it up on the defensive end because he is probably the best shooter this Badger team has. So, it's going to be important to hit some outside shots early to open up that paint. But I think the Badgers are going to come out with a win tomorrow.
I agree with you there. You're going to have to hit some outside shots and spread them apart here. The big thing I'm looking for on the defensive end for the Badgers, they struggled against Penn State. And, finally, they struggled against Northwestern. But Northwestern didn't hit shots like Penn State did, and that's what killed them down the stretch there. The big thing I watch out for in this game with the length that Indiana has, you can't afford the switches. You can't afford Chucky being switched onto one of these big guys. So how do the guards from Wisconsin play the pick and roll in this game? How can they establish themselves to keep these guards in front of them so they don't lose them there going to the basket, so they don't have to expect Crowell to be able to handle one of these guards? He can get back to his assignment because Indiana, you have to respect them as much from the guard position as you have to respect them on the inside, especially with the length that they have on this team. So I'm really looking for, on the defense, in the defensive side, how does Greg Gard prepare his guys for a long, lanky team? Because we talked about Renew and we talked about Ware, but they also have another guy there. I was talking about Bako. I don't know how to say his name. It's Mgbako. That's a tough name to pronounce right there. But we're going to call him Bako. Bako works for me. Bako, he's averaging 12.1 a game right now himself. So you go across the three big men for Indiana, and they're averaging 12 plus points per game right now between Ware and Renew and Bako there. So, these big guys for Indiana playing very well, and then you add in the play of what we know Trey Galloway can play like, and then we add into there Xavier Johnson, and this Indiana team is well put together. So Wisconsin on the defensive end is going to have to be able to handle their assignments and play well on defensive end. That's a big thing I'm watching out for in this one. So I'm going to go key performer in this one. They're going to have a big game out of Steven Crowell in this game. And I really look for, what does Max Klesmit bring in this Indiana game? because we watched these last 3 games, and I mean, he didn't play a lot against Penn State, but he had 10 points. He was 4 for 5 from the floor. He was 2 for 2 from downtown. He was still shooting it hot. I look to see what does Max Klesmit do in his technically 3rd straight game of hot shooting there, coming into his 4th now. What does he do going into this one? So I'm looking at Max Klesmit and Steven Crowl for my standout guys to watch out for in this one. Austin, who are we looking for in this one for the Badgers? Who's got to stand out here?
I got 3 guys. I got Steven Crowl and Tyler Wall on the inside just because of their big men. They're gonna have to play pretty big defense there in the paint. And then, like Rogan said, I'm looking at Chucky Hepburn just for the fact that I'm pretty sure he didn't even score any points against Penn State. And that's a little concerning to me. We know now that he's able to pass the ball, and we shouldn't have to rely on him as much as in the past. But we still need some production on the offensive side out of him, and I'm still trying to look for that out of him. And I mean, hopefully he can score some type of points in this game. That would be pretty helpful towards our offense, and then we won't have to be in much trouble when it comes to closer games.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Not being so hesitant to shoot and just being a threat. I think that's the big thing we look for there in Chucky Hepburn. I agree with you guys. I'm not even looking for 20 points. I'm not looking for 15 points. Just something on there to add to it and just to add as a threat to this Wisconsin team. You have to respect him. Right now, teams watching him, he hesitates to shoot. He's more or less looking to pass the ball around. He's not a threat out there on the offense. So I think that's what's really killing Wisconsin is you don't have 5 threats on the basketball court. I mean, you can sag off of one guy and double team another. So Rogan, who are some of your key guys you are watching out for Wisconsin in this one to pick up the win here?
Yeah, I think my key guy is Tyler Wall. Like I was saying last game, he's kind of been a steady performer for the Badgers all year long, but he's coming off a pretty rough performance against Penn State there. And like you said with Klesmit, it's going to be interesting to see if he can keep it going this game. To maybe like this recent streak is him just kind of finding his groove instead of just kind of having a couple one-off games here. Because if Klesmit can kind of turn it on like he has been and stay consistent with the scoring, like that's huge for the Badgers, especially with the way he can shoot the outside shot. Because when he's on, he's a really good three-point shooter, and that opens up spacing for the rest of this team. So my key guys for this game are definitely going to be Tyler Wall and Max Klesmit.
I can agree with you there. He's a very dynamic 3-level scorer. He can get to the rim. His mid-range is pretty darn good, and when he can start to hit from the outside, he becomes a dangerous player. So I agree, Max Klesmit has to have a big game in this one for the Badgers to pull it out against Indiana. So should be a big matchup there on FS1, 7:30 tip for that one there from the Kohl Center. So if you're watching on TV, FS1, if you're heading down to the Kohl Center, that should be a great matchup there against Indiana. But with that, I got to look at one more game here coming up this weekend, and that's going to be also on Saturday, 11 o'clock tip. Number 17, Marquette taking on unranked St. John's. St. John's coming in this one 12-6. Marquette coming in at 12-5. Right now, they're giving St. John's the edge over Marquette in this one. It must be a road game for Marquette here, I'm assuming. Let's see. Yeah, it's at Madison Square Garden. So it will be a road game for Marquette. They're giving St. John's the 53% chance to win this one. So kind of interesting there, especially because St. John's coming this one unranked and what they've thought of Marquette over this time. So Austin, who are we looking for some key guys here for this Rick Pitino-led St. Johnny's team?
Yeah, St. John's, you're going to look at Joel Serrano, their center, their big man in the middle there. He's averaging 16.4 points per game, leads the team. He's averaging 9.8 rebounds as he leads the team, and 1.8 blocks. He also leads the team in that. So 3 categories there for Joel Serrano, their big man in the middle there. It's going to be a big matchup for Iguodaro for Marquette. And then their other guy here, Dennis Jenkins. He's averaging 13.1 points per game, 5.9 assists, and 1.5 steals for St. John's. So it's going to be a pretty big game for those two. And then also Jordan Dingle is averaging 10.5 points per game to help him out. Besides that, it's kind of just those 3. Some other guys average low single-digit numbers. As a team, they average 77.9. But I think overall that's a little bit high compared to some of their other games. Just to look at their schedule to see some of the other teams that they played. They've lost to a Michigan team who's I wouldn't say is very impressive so far, and they've also played UConn and they lost by only 4 points though. So they've played some pretty decent competition along with Providence. They beat Providence, so we know how good Providence is. Providence obviously beat Wisconsin and Marquette both, and then they just recently lost to Creighton by 1, and then they recently lost to Seton Hall also by 15 there. They're on a 2-game losing streak. One, they lost by 1. The other lost by 15. We know Seton Hall is a pretty good team. We've seen how they were able to play against Marquette and kind of shut them down there. Now they're going up against Marquette. It's a home game at 11 o'clock. I think they're going to have a big game out of Serrano there and Jenkins, both of them. It seems like when you're looking at all their other games against the teams that they played the previous year, or not the previous year, but the previous games here, it's mainly been those two guys from points, rebounds, and assists. It's those two guys across the board, Jenkins and Serrano, and I think that's who's going to be the biggest factor against this Marquette Golden Eagles team.
You know, all I got to say is Seton Hall should be ranked at this point. They beat St. John's. They beat Marquette. They've got a pretty good win streak going on themselves. Seton Hall's got to be in the top 25 here pretty soon. I just got to say that in Big East action. But, you know, leading into this one, the big thing that stands out to me is how well St. John's rebounds the basketball. 40 rebounds per game right now compared to a Marquette team who's, pretty darn good themselves, and they got 33 rebounds per game right now. Just the difference there between the two. So Marquette's going to have to, like you said, they're going to have to control the boards in this one going up against St. John's. A key guy for me, though, I got to see Tyler Kolek play well again. You know, you're heading to Madison Square Garden. You're going on the road. You're technically not favored in this game against St. John's. You have to have a big game if you're Tyler Kolek. He facilitates the basketball. He can play that style of basketball too. But we see what Marquette's like when Tyler Kolek struggles, and we see what they can do when he plays well. We saw him in Maui when Tyler Kolek was playing well. They made it all the way through there to the championship. Now you watching them as of late, Tyler Kolek was struggling. They went on a 2-game skid there, bounced back with a win against Villanova when Tyler Kolek plays well. So that's going to be a big guy to watch out for me in this one. Rogan, anything you're seeing in this matchup between Marquette and St. John's that stands out to you?
Yeah, Trades, like you're saying, Kolek, he's been kind of struggling recently, but especially with his shooting. Like, he's been scoring. The last couple of games he's had double-digit scoring, but, the shooting numbers have not been great. In almost 4 of the last 5 games, he's shot under 40% from the field, which, if anyone knows Kolek, he usually takes quite a few high-percentage shots. So for him to be shooting that way is pretty poor. And, I just want to say, how cool is it that Rick Pitino's coaching at St. John's and kind of bringing that program back? Because when St. John's is good and they're playing, there's meaningful basketball being played at Madison Square Garden, that's great for college basketball. There is no better environment in college basketball than Madison Square Garden. So, but yeah, like you're saying, Kolek really needs to get going here for this team to turn around, and I think he will. He's coming off a back-to-back double-digit scoring nights, so I'm looking for him to have a big game because when you're the point guard of the team, the offense really does run through you. So if you're having an off night, it tends to wear off on your other guys and affect them too. So I think Marquette's going to go in there and they're going to win a tough battle at the Madison Square Garden, but I think the Marquette Golden Eagles come out on top.
Should be a good game there from Madison Square Garden. It's going to be on Fox, 11 a.m. there, number 17 Marquette taking on St. John's. I was just thinking about what you're saying there. It's good when St. John's is good in college basketball. I got to say it's good when Louisville is good too. Louisville's been stinking for the past couple of years now, but you just, at one point, I just want to see them come back. I want to see Syracuse start playing good basketball again. Those are two teams. Butler, I remember it's been a while, but Butler used to be pretty darn good when I think Gordon Hayward went to Butler when they made it to the national championship. He had the shot to win it against Duke. So, you think back, George Mason used to have a good basketball team. You think back to old college basketball. I remember I used to have this NCAA college basketball game on my PS2, and it was 2002 or something like that. And just to look at the teams way back in the day that were semi-good in college basketball, and then you compare them to today's NBA or to today's NCAA men's, and it's like, where did those teams go? I mean, we don't even hear about these teams anymore. And back in the day, they were some of the cream of the crop teams. So definitely interesting there. Should be a big matchup there for Marquette. I just want to talk about other college basketball news. Green Bay men's did pick up the win over Wright State last night. That was 88-81 the finish. Milwaukee men, they lost 90-72 to Northern Kentucky. That was a bad game there for the Panthers. And then looking down the line, the Green Bay women's were also in action. They beat Detroit Mercy 75-48, and Milwaukee women got the win 67-51 over Oakland. So some good games last night there in the Horizon League on both sides, the men's and the women's. But with that, I want to talk about Game Day Supply in Onalaska. Do you have a sports club or team looking for some sweet custom apparel or uniforms? Check out the awesome crew at Game Day Supply to help your team get the sweetest gear. Find them on Facebook at Game Day Supply or online at GameDaySupply.net. But with that, I'm going to jump over to Austin here with our fact of the day.
Good to hear we got the music back, Trage. On this day in 2002, this game was known as the Tuck Rule game. In the AFC divisional playoff game with under 2 minutes to go, New England Patriots trailed Oakland Raiders 13-10 in a driving snowstorm there when the Tom Brady fumble ruled as an incomplete pass. The Patriots ended up winning 16-13 in overtime. Charles Woodson was the one that was sacking Tom. Well, it would have been a strip sack fumble for Charles Woodson there, but they called it that his hand was supposedly going forward, and they called an incomplete pass, and it's pretty controversial, and it's known as the Tuck Rule game.
Interesting fact of the day right there, Austin. That was a good one. We got the music back. That was the big thing I was looking for there, was to get the tunes back. We were a struggle yesterday. But with that, I'm going to move on here. I want to move to Pittsville Farm and Home Center. At the store, they serve you anything from hydraulic hoses to red roses. Stop in and see the awesome crew down there at Pittsville Farm and Home. But with that, I want to get into the NFL now. We have the NFL weekend slate coming up here. Before we get into the Packers, I just wanted to talk about the weekend slate here with the NFL, get our picks in. So our first game on Saturday will be between the Texans and the Ravens. So that should be a pretty good matchup there coming from Baltimore. So I'm going to jump to Austin first. Austin, who do you got winning that game? Texans, Ravens.
Yeah, Trage, I think this is where the dream ends for CJ Stroud. And give me the Ravens on this one here. I like Lamar Jackson. I like what they're doing over there in Baltimore. And go Ravens.
Austin's got the Ravens. Rogan, who do we got? Texans, Ravens.
Trage, Ravens big. I think Ray Lewis runs out of the tunnel and they stomp the Texans. Ravens big, Trage.
Last week, everybody, both of you told me that Joe Flacco was going to go to NRG Stadium and he was going to just stomp all over the Texans. And I recall the score was 40-something to 14. It was a rough game there. So I'm going to go with, and this is an upset, but Lamar Jackson hasn't proven it to me in the playoffs, and I'm going to take the Texans in an upset win on the road in Baltimore. Give me the Texans. I think CJ Stroud and this defense are playing phenomenal. If there's going to be an upset to watch for, I think it's going to be right there. I'm going to take the Texans to beat the Ravens.
Trage, all I'm saying is Lamar Jackson can't throw 2 pick sixes when he runs the ball the whole time. So it's going to be tough for the Texans there to get their turnovers.
Well, I heard from somebody that the defense for the Browns was so good that it was going to be tough for the Texans offense to find.
Why don't we just move on to the next pick here, Trage? I think we should just move on to the next pick.
Let's move on to the next pick.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah. So with that, we're going to move on to the nightcap on Saturday. That'll be the Packers and 49ers. Pretty good matchup there between the two. So who are we looking at there in that one, Austin?
We'll get to this later, but you look at this 49ers team, Rogan. We talked about it. They're stacked. They got 9 Pro Bowlers. They got 10 All-Pros. I don't know the specific numbers. Give me the 49ers. I'm just kidding. Go Pack, go, baby. Go big green and gold. I can't. I know. You guys saw it. It's like I was picking my college, and I put the hat back and put on the right one. You know what I'm saying? You guys thought I was going to pick the 49ers. No. A lot of dead silence there. No. I'm going with my boy Jordan Love because I've been with him since day one, unlike some people.
We got it. You've been with Jordan Love since day one. That's enough. Quiet. Rogan, what do you got for the Packers 49ers?
Trade, I don't want to do this. I don't want to feed into this man on my left right now. This man, he does not need any more confidence. But you know what I said last week? They score 20, we score 40. They score 40, we score 80. Go Pack, go, baby.
I guess you're doubling them. Okay, I get it now. You're doubling up the score. I got you. I was you were going by 20 intervals there for a second, and then I was like trying to do math in my head. Okay, so we got Packers. I would take the 49ers because I don't think the Packers have the players to be able to beat the 49ers. I don't think they got the playmakers to beat the 49ers.
Trage, please tell me you're doing the good old hat switch. Please tell me you're doing the hat switch.
Okay, let's just be real here. If we were taking our money to Vegas right now, if you were taking your life depended on it, and you were taking your money to Vegas, I don't care, Jordan Love boy. If you were taking your money to Vegas, you are not putting it on the Green Bay Packers to pull off another win. I want to be as optimistic as I can be, and I'm going to cheer for the green and gold until that game is over. But I'm saying that if I was a betting man, the last one I'm picking, I already picked the Texans to win, so I'm already through the. You know what? I already picked the Texans to win. I already picked upset city. It's upsets happening. There's going to be one upset this weekend in the NFL. Give me the Packers. I'll take the Packers.
Boy.
But I'm telling you that if I was a betting man, if this was a real live bet, 49ers.
You know what they say? I'd rather be a poor man and a man that sticks with my team than a rich man and a traitor. That's what they say, Trage.
That's why Vikings fans are so loyal. With that, though, we're going to move on to the Sunday slate of the NFL. 2 o'clock, we're going to have the Buccaneers traveling up to Ford Field, taking on the Lions. I saw a reporter ask the Buccaneers coach how they were going to acclimate themselves to the weather at Ford Field for that one. And he laughed and he said, you do realize that it's going to be indoors, right? We're going to have about 10 seconds outside before we run inside quick. So we'll be fine in the weather. I thought that was hilarious. I don't know if that lady who asked the question still has a job, but anyways, Austin, jumping to you right away. I mean, weather permitting, apparently, for this game. How does this one square up for you? Who picks up the win here?
Well, Trage, that's what happens when the Detroit Lions don't host a game in forever. People kind of just forget about them in the cold weather. But with all that being said, this might be the game of the week here. I guess Kansas City and Bills. That might be a pretty good game. But this one for the NFC-wise might be the game of the week. I mean, you look at two teams here kind of fighting for their lives. This is a tough one because Buccaneers are playing really good. But I'm going to go with the Lions. I'm going to go with the Lions. They're at home. You got Dan Campbell on their side screaming every single play. And he's going to get them ready. He's going to motivate them to his best ability. I think I'm going to go with the Lions.
Definitely, Dan Campbell is going to play a big factor in this game against the Buccaneers here. So, Rogan, who do we got here? Lions, Buccaneers.
Yeah, Trage, I think this is going to be a great game. I could see this one coming down to a team having the ball with about a minute and a half left to go with a chance to win the game. I really could. That's the type of game I think this is going to be. But like Austin said, the Lions got MCDC over there on their sideline, so I think I'm going to take the Lions. I think they're going to win at home. I think if this game was in Tampa, I'd take Tampa. But since it's in Detroit, I'm going to take the Lions this weekend.
I'm going to have to agree there with the Lions. This could be a career-defining game for Baker Mayfield, though, with the Buccaneers. If you can travel to Ford Field and win, like you said, minute left, Buccaneers have the ball, say down 3. Can Baker Mayfield take the Buccaneers team down the field, get them into field goal range, score that touchdown, whatever it is to win this game against the Lions? Definitely going to be an interesting thing to see here. In our nightcap, though, 5:30 kickoff for that game on CBS, Bills-Chiefs. The rivalry holds true for another year. For the first time in a while, though, Patrick Mahomes will be traveling for a playoff game. Definitely something to see there. This one's going to be at Orchard Park in New York. Who knows what the weather is going to be like? It changes in Buffalo every other day. So, Austin, right away, who are we looking at? Bills, Chiefs?
Bills.
Bills?
Bills. You want to know why? Like you said.
Yeah, I was waiting for it.
Like you said, Patty Mahomes on the road, Brittany Mahomes on the road, and Taylor Swift is on the road. I think that's the biggest factor. Taylor Swift is on the road. She doesn't know how to act in Buffalo, and that's going to affect Travis Kelce and this Kansas City team. And, I mean, I think they were looking at snowstorms again. I think it might be another snow game up there in Buffalo. Pretty frigid temperatures, which doesn't really affect Kansas City, but it's going to be a really good game. I want the Bills to win this game, get over the hump of the Kansas City Chiefs, always beating them in the playoffs, and I think they'll be able to do it this year.
You know, but Taylor Swift on the road, she's on the road with her tour all the time. So I feel like she's pretty acclimated to being on the road.
Never in
so
Buffalo,
I feel like she travels well. I don't know where her concerts have been. Maybe she's had a concert in Buffalo. I don't know. Rogan, we're going to jump to you here. That's enough about Taylor Swift. We're going to jump to Rogan here. Rogan, Chiefs, Bills, who do we got?
Yeah, Trage. You know, I love Josh Allen. I love the Bills, and I want them to win. But I've gone chalk up to this point, and I think I've got a feeling in my gut that Patrick Mahomes on the road and people are doubting him. I don't like that feeling. He is the best quarterback in the league, and you kind of saw last week that offense kind of got it going, and that's scary because this defense is by far the best defense Mahomes has ever had during his time at Kansas City. And as much as I love Josh Allen and I love the Bills, I could see Patrick Mahomes going in to Buffalo and coming out with a win this weekend. So I'm going to take the Chiefs. Travis Kelce has a big game too.
Yeah, like you said there, Patrick Mahomes doubted on the road. Weather won't bother them either way. They're used to it in Arrowhead. Doesn't matter if it's cold or not. I agree. This could be a career-defining game for Josh Allen. Just like we talked about with Baker Mayfield, this could be the game for Josh Allen. Finally get the Bills into an AFC championship, possibly then into a Super Bowl, a place the Bills haven't been in a while. So I think that's going to be the best game. Those two Sunday games, I think could be the best games, unless if we see some upsets happen on Saturday. If we see the Pack and the 49ers running the table against each other, if we see the Texans rolling with the Ravens, this could be a heck of a weekend in the NFL, or it could be terrible at the same time. But those Sunday games are going to be some good games there. So I'm going to take the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will pull it out there. So we will see how we do this week. Right now, Austin and I are tied there 1-1 in the win column. Rogan is 0-1 right now there, but looking to bounce back this week. Looking to bounce back in this one. We got to jump into the Packers. That's the big one of the weekend for us. Looks like weather won't be a factor there for that one. It's going to be 62 degrees. I did see there might be some rain in the forecast, so that's going to be something to watch out for. Austin, we haven't really dug into the stats a lot this week. We've talked about players, but let's talk about some of the stats in this one. So who are some of the big guys for the 49ers there on the offensive side of the football that the Packers need to be keying in on in this ball game?
Yeah, when you look at their offense, they're led by Brock Purdy. He has 4,280 yards passing. He's 308 for 444 with a 69.4% completion percentage there. 31 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, only sacked 28 times. So like we've been kind of talking about all year, they have a pretty good offensive line there. And if you take away that Ravens game where he threw 4 picks, this guy is probably up for the front runner for MVP, no doubt. Looking at their rushing, it's Christian McCaffrey by a long shot. I mean, 1,459 yards rushing for Christian McCaffrey with 14 touchdowns there. And then they also have Elijah Mitchell there with only 281 yards and only 2 touchdowns, but definitely a solid backup. And then Deebo Samuel. They will line up Deebo Samuel in the backfield and have him run the ball a couple times. 225 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. 5 rushing touchdowns there for Deebo. And then quickly, just looking at receiving, they got 2,000-yard receivers, and only one of them is a wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk with 1,342 yards on 75 receptions and 7 touchdowns. George Kittle is their other leading receiver there with 1,020 yards, 65 receptions, and 6 touchdowns. And then it's Deebo Samuel with 892 yards, 60 receptions, and 7 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey, though, when you look at his receiving, he's also really effective back coming out of the backfield for receiving back there. 67 receptions there for him, 565 yards, but also 7 touchdowns. 7 receiving touchdowns for Christian McCaffrey. So if you total that up, he has 21 touchdowns on the year here for Christian McCaffrey. What me and Rogan, or kind of like we've all been saying, Christian McCaffrey is probably their most dangerous man on the team. We kind of knew that after he got traded to San Fran from Carolina, and it's going to be hard to stop him. It's going to be really hard to stop him. And then when you look at their defense, this is a good sign for 49ers. They're both led. Both leading tacklers are both their linebackers, in Fred Warner with 132 tackles and Dre Greenlaw with 120 tackles there. Nick Bosa has 10.5 sacks for the 49ers, and Cleveland Farrell has 3.5, and Javon Kinlaw has 3.5, both on the inside there. So they got pretty good linebackers that lead the team in tackles, which is always a good sign to see if you're a team, or a sign to see if you're a team. And they got a stellar D-line that can get to the quarterback. And I'll just wait. I'll let you guys talk here about what I kind of just went through with stats.
You know, I look back at this 49ers season, and like you were talking there, the amount of stars that they have in this team, from Kittle to Ayuk to Christian McCaffrey to Brock Purdy, they have stars up and down the lineup. And you look at that team, you say, how can you slow them down? It's not like they haven't been slowed down this season. You look back at some games there, they had that 3-game skid against the Browns. They played the Vikings in there and the Bengals. They lost all 3 games there. The Bengals actually put up 31 points against that defense for the 49ers. Looking at the offensive side, I'm keying in on some of those games there, but I'm looking at the Bengals game. And Brock Purdy, 2 interceptions. He was sacked twice for 18 yards. Christian McCaffrey only went for 54 yards on 12 carries. You look at the game before that against the Vikings. The Vikings were able to hold Christian McCaffrey to another 50-yard game there on 15 carries. So it's not like this team is, it's not like they're invincible, right? You look at teams and you say, where's their holes? Where's their holes? The Bengals found the holes. The Vikings found the holes. The Browns have a pretty good defense, but they found the holes to be able to slow them down. So looking at this one, that has a lot to do with play calling. What does Joel Berry and Matt LaFleur, because we know Matt LaFleur is involved in the defensive room now, what do they draw up in this game to slow down that run game? You have to make this team one-dimensional if you can, right? You can't let them work on all phases. If they get the run game going and the pass game, this game's going to be over before it started. There won't be much to really, there won't be much to do if you're Green Bay, if they're able to establish a run game early with Christian McCaffrey, and then Brock Purdy's able to go wherever he wants with the football. You have to take something away from the 49ers, whether it's Christian McCaffrey or if it's Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Ayuk, whatever it is, you have to, you look at this all week and you hear people talking about it, and everybody just keeps keying on these guys for the 49ers. There's so many stars, and I get that. There's so many stars. You have to take away something. Whether it's, like I said, Deebo Samuel, you take him out of the game. You take Christian McCaffrey. You get beat by somebody else, then you just have to live with it. You can't take away everything. That's the thing that I think Green Bay has to key in on this one is when you play really talented teams, somebody is still going to beat you at times. Like Rogan was talking about yesterday with their short pass game. It's going to take them maybe 12 times to get down the field and be able to put it in the end zone. But it's taking that away from. Don't let them get that over-the-top play. Don't let them get that big hitter on you right off the bat. Limit the big hitters, right? Keep it simple. Keep it in front of you. Make the tackle when you can. Make this a game about possession. If you are able to turn Brock Purdy over once, if you're able to turn him over twice in this one, maybe you get a couple sacks. The Packers' defensive line has been playing well as of late. I mean, I don't care if they got Trent Williams in there on the offensive line, whoever they have. This defensive line for Green Bay has been playing well. And you know what the big thing is that this defensive line for Green Bay, outside of Preston Smith, is young. They don't know. You know, that's the biggest thing with Green Bay is they don't know. They're out there to play football. They're out there to try and that's the big thing with Green Bay too, is they're a team. They're built as a team. They're not individual players right now. They're playing for each other and they're playing for a championship. And at the end of the day, the pressure, as I've seen so far, the growth of the Green Bay Packers throughout this end of the season here when the pressure's been turned up has been the most impressive. And looking at this defensive line, it has impressed me in that aspect too. I think they can put pressure on Brock Purdy. I think they can rattle him. And I think they can force a couple turnovers. And I think that will be huge in this one because I believe time of possession will be massive in this game. So like Rogan said yesterday, limiting them to the short stuff, keeping it in front of you, that's going to be big for Green Bay. If you can get them into a 3rd and 5 every once in a while, slow them down to that aspect. Don't let them, 1st and 10. Now it's another 1st and 10. Now it's, 2nd and 1. Keep them so they have to keep working. Make Kyle Shanahan dig deep into that playbook. Don't let him stay one-dimensional. Don't let him try just the easy stuff. Make him dig deep in this game to find that trick play that he's had up his sleeve for 3 weeks now that he's got to throw in this ball game. I think that's something that I'm watching in this one for this defense is to dig deep and make Kyle Shanahan beat you. I think that's going to be big. Is coach on coach in this one. We know, like I said, Joe Barry isn't really calling the defense. He is, but he isn't. Matt LaFleur's got his head in that room. So looking at coaching versus coaching, how does this defensive coaching staff for Green Bay prepare them for going up against Kyle Shanahan? And then in game, how do they make adjustments throughout this one? So Rogan, looking at what Austin was going off there with stats for some of these offensive players, what are the things you key in on in this one for Green Bay going up against that offense for the 49ers?
Yeah, like Austin was saying with the stats there, you got a guy like Ayuk who's leading the team in receiving yards, and that's kind of a guy you don't even hear about on the offense, really, between Debo, McCaffrey, and Kittle. But I think the Packers will do an all-right job containing him. The guy I'm worried about is George Kittle, because what does George Kittle do? He's a tight end, so he's going to be working that middle of the field where the Packers this year have really struggled guarding the middle of the field because especially when you get into man-to-man situations, he's going to start getting lined up with our linebackers and our safeties who – quite honestly, haven't been great in coverage this year. Like our cornerback room is definitely our strongest, like in the back secondary. So it worries me with a guy like Kittle who's going to be working the middle of that field, finding those gaps in the zone behind those linebackers. So our linebackers are going to, I think the game is going to be won and lost with Quay Walker and Campbell there. They're going to have both have great games, not only in the run game, but also in the pass game, because like you were saying, if you allow this run game to get going and these linebackers have to start biting on some of these play action passes and coming up, that's when you're going to see Purdy really take them apart, going right over the top of them. So it's going to be really important for our linebackers to follow their keys and win some one-on-ones because they're going to happen. Kyle Shanahan is a great schemer, and he's going to get one-on-one situations with some of these linebackers and safeties, kind of like you saw the Cowboys start to do late in that game with CeeDee Lamb there. So I think that's really important for this Packers defense. And kind of like how they started out with the Cowboys, this team has to get out to the lead first. They're not great from playing behind. And I feel like if the 49ers score first and, one stop for the 49ers defense, and all of a sudden they have the ball back with a chance to go up 2 scores, like as a Packer team, you cannot allow that to happen. You have to score first in order to even have a chance in this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Packers have to do, on both sides, the offense has to be able to keep the 49ers defense on the field at least for a couple, first down here, first down there, no 3-and-outs, right? We can't give this, you can't keep trusting the Packers defense. They have to bounce back out there after a 3-and-out. They just got, hosed down the field. Like you said, maybe it's early on in this one, and the 49ers go down there and they score. You can't go 3-and-out then if you are the Green Bay Packers. You have to put some kind of a sustainable drive together to prove that you can move the football and to give that defense a break, because they got to bounce back out there again and go up against this star-studded team in the 49ers. Like you're saying there, George Kittle, the game is going to be won and lost in the middle of the field. They aren't going to beat you up. They're going to try it, but the 49ers love that middle of the field, right? Rogan, you were talking about this earlier this week there. They love that crossing scheme. They love to do the crossers there. That is going to be a big part of this Packers defense here, is how do they handle the middle of the field there, and especially with George Kittle. Communication, like we talked about yesterday with this Green Bay Packers defense, they've struggled this year communicating, and they love to run the zone. You're going to have to communicate if you're running a zone defense there, especially with George Kittle in the tight end position, going to be in that middle of the field there. Whether Debo comes out of the slot or if he's in the backfield, wherever he is, he's going to be coming there in that middle of the field. Even a guy like Christian McCaffrey, he's a matchup nightmare out there whether he's coming out of the backfield or he's receiving the football. He's a nightmare out there. So all the way around the middle of the field, like you said, linebackers are going to be huge in this one. Packers got some good news. Looks like Isaiah McDuffie is back at practice. So we're going to get McDuffie back there in the linebacker core. I just want to cover the kind of, because a lot of the injury report is the defense. So right now, Jaire did not practice on Wednesday or Thursday. So I'm going to assume no Jaire Alexander come Saturday. I don't know, but I'm assuming no Jaire. Kenny Clark was limited with a back, but I assume Kenny Clark will be out there. Big news for the offense, A.J. Dillon did practice on Thursday. Was limited, but that's good sign that A.J. Dillon's on the right way. He's coming back. Engelbar, like we were talking about there, sad to see. He's out for the season, it looks like here, with a season-ending injury. Rashawn Gary, he was limited. Elton Jenkins, he's limited every week at practice. He always ends up playing. So Elton Jenkins will be out there. Isaiah McDuffie was limited, but he's back at practice as of Wednesday and Thursday. Keyshawn Nixon limited with a toe injury. Jonathan Owens limited. Jaden Reed was limited with a chest. He's been on there with the chest for a while. So I assume, most of these guys on here who are limited, I expect to play on, it looks like the punter. Daniel Whelan is questionable for the game on Saturday with an illness. I don't know what's going on with him, but we might need to find a punter for Saturday's game here. That's I didn't think I'd be talking about a punter on the injury report, but apparently as of Thursday he got sick. So I don't know what's going on, what kind of illness it is. It doesn't really specify on the injury report, but hopefully he's back by Saturday, because trying to find a punter late like this, I would assume there's one on the practice squad, but you really don't want to bring up a practice squad punter in a divisional game there. So that's definitely interesting. But let's flip over to the Packers and the Packers offense going into this one. So Austin, what are we seeing for some key stat guys for the Packers here going into this playoff game against the 49ers?
Yeah, I mean, you look at a guy like Jordan Love. He hasn't missed a single game this season. I think that's pretty crucial, because we've seen when we had old guys like Aaron Rodgers who'd, for some reason, miss how many games. But we've had Jordan Love the whole entire season here, and everything's finally coming to fruition for this guy. And you look at some of his stats this is his postseason stats. All right, I was confused why they have – oh, wait, where do I go? Rogan, where do I – oh, I got to click down here. ESPN's messing me up here.
You came up with a big word there in flourishing, so, I mean, I was kind of surprised by that one. I was baffled. I didn't care.
ESPN, they do their crazy things with stats here. But in the regular season, Jordan Love has led the team with 4,159 passing yards, a 64% completion rate, and 32 touchdowns to only 11 interceptions. You see that sack there. He's been sacked 30 times, but that's actually pretty good. That's pretty good compared to other teams that we see around the league. Then when it comes to rushing, we got Aaron Jones there. Only played in 12 games for the Packers here. Has 656 rushing yards, only 2 touchdowns. But I feel like, well, that doesn't include the postseason there. So now he's up to around 5. So Aaron Jones been playing lights out, especially these last few games here. He's averaging 100 yards per game these last 4 games there. And then when it comes to receiving, it's all across the board. I mean, you name a guy, we've named them, and they've received the ball. We don't have a single 1,000-yard receiver on our team like some of these others. Our top guy is Jaden Reed. He has 64 receptions with 793 yards and 13 touchdowns. But that's the top guy. Next is Romeo Doubs with 674, Dontavian Wicks, 581, Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, and even Aaron Jones has 223. They've totaled 32 touchdowns, obviously because Jordan Love threw them all, but not a single guy has over 1,000 receiving yards. I think that's just what makes this offense so great. And I think we've talked about this previously this week, that Aaron Rodgers didn't fit the mold of Matt LaFleur's offense. This is, I think, what Matt LaFleur wanted in his offense, and Aaron Rodgers kind of wanted to run his own offense sometimes. Granted, when Aaron Rodgers was out there, he would change the play to be better, but sometimes it seemed like he wouldn't change the play, or he would change the play for the worse. But here you got Jordan Love, first time starting the whole year. You got to just trust in your coach, and that's what he's been doing, and I think that's what's been helping the Packers here as of late and down this stretch. When you look at the 49ers defense, though, I think there are some things that we can exploit, especially with how good our offensive line is. The 49ers don't blitz a whole lot, and that's because they have such a really good D-line, but they trust their D-line to get home so much. If our offensive line can play good, I think that'll allow Jordan Love to play better, obviously, but also find more guys, have a little bit more time in the pocket. I think that's what this game is going to come down to, is the trenches. As always, when it's our guys against their guys, offense versus defense, it's going to come down to that.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the offensive line for Green Bay, and like you said there, it's going to be one in the trenches in this one. Nick Bosa came out and he said Jordan Love hasn't seen pressure like we're going to give him. I don't think the 49ers, if you look at the stats here for the Packers on the season, they're second in pass block win rate this season there, according to ESPN. So winning in the trenches there. Elton Jenkins, if you look at his stats individually, he's played 542 pass blocking snaps on the year. He's given up 0 sacks, 4.4% pressure percent allowed. Elton Jenkins has been the main catalyst in there of what we've seen as a revolution in the offensive line for Green Bay. That has a lot to do with this coaching staff for Green Bay. Looking at the offensive line coach there, Luke Butkus, earlier this season, a lot of people were yelling about the offensive line. They weren't playing well. They weren't giving Jordan Love time, this and that. The way that he stuck it out and led this offensive line to where they are now, it's kind of like we talked with Tom Clements there with his work with Jordan Love. Just looking at the same thing there with Butkus, was that he got this offensive line back to what they are now, and he worked with them. Josh Myers, he started out this year, he was struggling. You look at guys like Zach Tom and also Elton Jenkins. And then you have Rasheed Walker. Walker stepped in for an injured David Bakhtiari, and Walker has been playing great as of late for the Green Bay Packers. So just how they've revolutionized this offensive line, that's a big thing that the Packers have going into this one, is just youth at the offensive line that is playing well and playing well together right now. I think that's huge. Also, like you said, the run game is going to have to get going in this one. If you want to exploit the 49ers, if you want to open up anything that is in that defense, you're going to have to be able to run the football. And as we've seen so far in these past 4 games, Aaron Jones has been going off for 100-yard games. He's going to have another big game in this one if the Packers want to have success on the offensive side of the football there. And then, I mean, yeah, across the board, you're just looking at the offensive line here for Green Bay and saying that we are going to have to be able to keep Nick Bosa and Chase Young out of the backfield if you are Green Bay in this one. So, Rogan, looking at the offensive side of the football for Green Bay in this one, what are some of the keys that you have looking into this game? How can the Packers, like Austin said, exploit the holes that are in this 49ers defense? There's holes. We just got to find them.
Yeah, I think really the only holes on this defense are in that secondary. And like Austin was saying, they don't like to blitz a lot because their front four is so talented. So if the Packers are able to block up front, which they're going to have to, there are opportunities on the back end. Their back end isn't that great. I mean, they're a solid back end, and they will do a lot of things to confuse Jordan Love. They're going to throw a lot of different looks at him, disguise a lot of looks. That's what they always do. But they also have, in my opinion, I think between Greenlaw and Fred Warner, that's the best linebacker duo in the entire league. You could argue that the Ravens linebacker duo might be the best, but in my opinion, I think the 49ers is the best. So that's going to be a different style of game than they played against the Cowboys, where the Cowboys like to play a lot of six secondary players, and their linebackers are quite a bit smaller. The 49ers have two legit linebackers that are as good stopping the run as they are guarding the pass. So that's something they're going to have to adjust to. This isn't going to be as easy to run the ball against this 49ers defense as it was the Cowboys. But in order to win this game, they have to be able to run the ball, and not only run it, but they have to run it a lot. I think you're going to have to win the time of possession by a considerable amount, because you want this 49ers offense to have as little opportunity on offense to score as possible and to give your defense a rest. So I think this game is won and lost by the offensive line. I think if this offensive line can block, Jordan Love and these wide receivers will be able to play good enough and make enough plays to beat this 49ers team.
I agree with you there. My biggest two keys for the Packers: can Matt LaFleur outcoach Kyle Shanahan? And does Jordan Love play like a star? For the Packers to go on the road and beat San Fran, Jordan Love we saw what he's done. We've seen what he can do. He's going to have to replicate what he did against the Cowboys and maybe actually dial it up one if they're going to beat this 49ers team. And then like you said, there's holes in the secondary. Does it open up with the play action game for Green Bay? Do they get the play action game going? Does that open it up? Does the run game open it up? What opens it up for Green Bay to be able to exploit that secondary? That's going to be a big thing, but that's going to be a lot on what does Matt LaFleur draw up in this game to match up with Kyle Shanahan. Like you guys were talking earlier, Kyle Shanahan's a phenomenal coach. He can scheme with the best of them. So what does Matt LaFleur do in this one to scheme up with Kyle Shanahan? So with that, anything else we have to add with the Green Bay Packers and 49ers matchup? Nothing across the board. So should be a good matchup there on Saturday. We're excited. I mean, go Pack, go. We're hoping for an upset there going up against the 49ers. That'll be a 7:15 kickoff there from San Francisco. So with that, I want to move on here, get into our sports story of the day. So right away, I'm going to jump to Austin. Austin, what do you got for your sports story of the day?
Yeah, my sports story of the day is coming out of Columbus, Ohio, and Ohio State football. Ohio State football just hired Bill O'Brien as the new offensive coordinator. He previously coached for Alabama for the offensive coordinator under Nick Saban for the past 2 years, but it was also the Houston Texans head coach there for a little bit. Now he's going to Columbus, Ohio to be their offensive coordinator, and Ryan Day replacing himself, because Ryan Day was calling the plays for Ohio State, but now they have Bill O'Brien there at Ohio State.
Good offensive mind, terrible head coach. So I think it's actually a good fit for him to be the offensive coordinator there for Ohio State. Hate Ohio State, but good news for him there to get an offensive mind like Bill O'Brien into the room. Rogan, what do you got for your sports story of the day?
Yeah, Trey, staying in college football, my sports story of the day is Cam McCormick. He's a tight end for Miami, and he will now have a record 9th season of eligibility in college football, which is absolutely insane. And to kind of throw some crazy numbers out there, He played every single game for the Oregon Ducks in 2017. That long ago. This guy.
So, tell me how he got to 9 seasons. How has he gotten to this 9th season?
So he redshirted in 2016. So obviously you get another year if you redshirt. 2017, he started every single game for the Oregon Ducks. 2018, he had a season-ending injury and was granted another year. 2019, he had a season-ending injury and was granted another year. Missed part of 2020, and because of COVID, he was also granted another year. 2021, he had a season-ending injury, and then he transferred to Miami where he was granted 2 years of eligibility to play. So he will be starting college football next year for the Miami Hurricanes in his 9th season, and he will be 26 years old. That is ridiculous, in my opinion.
You think at some point when you have a season-ending injury for 3 years straight, you just say enough's enough and we walk away. But he kept coming back.
Get a job, brother.
Yeah, the resilience of this guy is impressive. I'll give him that, but how do you keep giving him years? I mean, after 4 or 5 years, that's a stretch. There's people ticked off about guys getting the COVID year. They were making fun of the Badgers because they had guys on their team that were 24 years old, and they were as old as NBA teams. But now you got a guy who's 27, you said? 26, 27?
26.
And who knows when his birthday is. He might hit 27 before the season's over. But, I mean, wowza. That is why.
You take a look at this guy. You need to go get a job, man, because you're 26 years old at a tight end. No one's going to draft you.
No.
Especially with the amount of injuries you had. I don't know. I guess if you just keep playing football for the fun of it, that's kind of stupid to me because go get a job. Go get a job, man.
You got money, but wow. I mean, okay. Going into his 9th season, that's impressive. So hopefully everything goes well for him and he doesn't get a season. I mean, if I hear that this guy has another season-ending injury and he gets granted a 10th season at Miami, I will boycott Miami football. I will send him a letter in the mail and say, this is just ridiculous at this point. So, wow. Okay. 9 seasons. That's impressive. But I got to go back to Rogan here. We wanted to do something new. It's something different. You get into college basketball, and during March Madness, there's lots of people that pick the games by mascots. They say who'd win in a fight, who would win this game in a fight between the mascots. So I'm going to go to Rogan here. We're going to pick our sports mascot fight of the week. Who would win in the fight between our mascots? So what game do we have for this week?
Trades the first week, and we are starting out with an absolute bang. I picked the Baylor Bears versus the Texas Longhorns this Saturday. And I got some stats here because we're going to have a Longhorn versus a Black Bear here. Longhorns, they can grow up to be 1,200 pounds.
That's a big
stand
cow.
6 feet tall at the shoulder.
Wow.
And their average horn, like separation, because obviously it's a Longhorn, is almost 11 feet long on a fully grown Texas Longhorn. Meanwhile,
that's a long horn right there.
That's a long horn.
Meanwhile, the Baylor Bears, their mascot is a black bear. Male black bears can actually grow to be almost 900 pounds, and they can stand at almost 6.5 feet tall. And when they're standing on their hind legs, can almost be 11 feet tall. So we got 2 absolutely massive mascot for both these teams. So one big question left. Who wins?
Give me the black bear.
Austin's taking the black bear.
Nothing's stopping a black bear with his claws and his teeth charging at you unless he gets a horn to the gut. That might hurt.
Except 2 6-foot-long spears.
Horn. I mean, it's 11 feet. It's 11 feet. This guy could just turn his head and say, run into it, big man. And then he stands up on his hind feet. I can't imagine he's too agile when he's standing up on his hind feet. Longhorn comes in charging. Bam. I got the Longhorn. I'm going to take the Longhorn in a fight over the black bear.
Have you guys seen the video of the black bear doing kung fu against the guy on like TikTok or something? Have you ever seen that? You know what I'm talking about?
Okay. We're not talking about a black bear that knows
What if the
kung
black
fu,
bear
right?
starts doing kung fu against a Longhorn?
We
It
need
ain't Kung Fu
stipulation
Panda no
for
more. This is
this.
Kung Fu Black Bear.
Does
Give me
the
the black
black bear know karate? Rogan, does the black bear know karate?
Now that I'm looking at this, it does say he is very, very skilled in karate. But
There
the
you go.
Texas Longhorn knows jiu-jitsu.
Do what?
Give me the Longhorn.
Jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu beats karate. I don't even know what the difference is, but the jiu-jitsu beats the karate all day long. I got the Longhorn.
I got
Longhorn
black.
here. Longhorn here.
Now we just need to put him into a ring and see who wins. I don't know. I don't know how we prove this one. I really don't. I don't know how we prove this one. But I think that's all we got. Is that all we got for Wisconsin sports for this week? That's all we got. So that's all we got for the week here. It is going to be a massive weekend in Wisconsin sports. Packers, San Francisco. You want to get ready for that game? Check out the Badgers coming up tonight here, taking on Indiana. Marquette's in action against St. John's. And then, the slate leading up into the big game is going to be massive. So get ready for Wisconsin sports. Thank you guys for joining us. This has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you guys back here on Monday, hopefully talking about another Packers win. But until then, deuces.